Welcome to the Evolvepreneur podcast channel, which is sponsored by evolvepreneur.biz, a new online community-based platform designed to help develop your skills and knowledge to be massively successful in this new digital age. Your host today is John North, who is a 3-time #1 international best-selling author and strategic marketer. John's passion is to help business owners to master the online marketing world.
So welcome to Evolvepreneur podcast. We're also doing this on video. So if you want to view some stuff on video that you can't really see on the audio, then that's the best place to go. Tell you a bit about Kristin Zhivago. She's one of the world's leading experts on the customer buying process. She's one of the first to see selling from a buyer's perspective. She speaks and teaches worldwide for companies and organisations. She spent decades as a revenue coach helping clients ranging from thriving young startups to those in Fortune 500, including Dow Jones, IBM, Johnson & Johnson. Zhivago is now president and co-founder of Cloud Potential, a company that helps businesses of all sizes understand how to take control of their digital marketing efforts. She blogs frequently at the Cloud Potential blog, Marketer's Reality. Marketing is broken. She is determined to make marketing work again. Fortunately, it's now possible to see what your customers and competitors are doing thanks to Google and other cloud-based analytical tools, and you'll see where you can stand out and know what you can do. No one has to market in the dark anymore. Welcome to our podcast. I'm really grateful you come along. I'm quite interested in your subject matter, and I know you mentioned you read my book, so we should have a good time today.
I agree. Thank you.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about your background. What were you doing before this? A lot of people sort of morph into the computer or the marketing industry from something else. Did you start that way, or did you start off with marketing?
I actually started out selling machine shop tools for Pratt & Whitney when I was 17. I was the first woman in the country to do that. And they just gave me a catalog and said, here, go sell. And so the first lesson I learned was, if you don't know what you're selling, you're not going to make any money.
Yep, don't understand the product.
Exactly. And I really didn't. And people were nice to me. You know, I'd walk into machine shops and everything would shut down and they'd say, okay, honey, this is a while ago. Why are you here? And so it just, I understood that one needed to really understand technology. I was immediately fascinated with the idea of technology and selling. And those two things together have guided my career ever since. So I ended up selling. Then I got frustrated with marketing and said, I'm not really able to sell using these marketing tools. So I got into marketing. My husband and I had an ad agency PR house in Silicon Valley for about 12 years. And then when the Mac came along, I told my husband, you may as well retire. He was 52. I said, just go he's an inventor. I said, just go and invent stuff, make things. And I'll go in-house and I'll start helping people in-house. And that's when I became a revenue coach and started helping companies market in-house. And I've honestly been doing that ever since. And then my partner and I started Cloud Potential, which is a marketing company, basically helping people get found and do digital marketing. We started the company in 2014. So it's been about 2.5, 3 years.
Wow. So basically you've grown up with all the changes that have happened. So it's quite interesting, I think, when you look back now and you can see what's happening. Obviously probably like me, you wish you invented Google at the time, but at the end of the day,
no, I wouldn't want to be the head of Google, actually.
No, not anymore. Just invent it and then sell it on, right? Let somebody else take all the headaches.
Right, after the first. Yeah. So technology's been interesting. And I was into technology before technology was cool. So when the web came along in 94, I immediately bought Zhivago.com. So I wouldn't
right, good work.
for that. And I've just been learning ever since. You really have to keep up. You have to be constantly learning. And I have to say that marketing has changed more in the last 2 years than it has in the previous 10 or 5 even. I mean, it's just been phenomenal. It's really
it's an explosion. Yeah. It's an explosion, and I think a lot of the mainstream companies have finally started to catch up. So they're starting to use technology. Like I was reading something like, to me, like the latest messenger bots and stuff like that are very popular now. And the banking system's now looking at how they can use it. And so suddenly it's becoming more mainstream. And so as soon as that happens, that a lot of the people that are necessarily the smaller guys aren't paying attention start paying attention.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. The good news is that if you use it properly, it can really help you. I mean, there's so much data now available, but what's really changed is our consumers are walking around with a supercomputer in the palm of their hand.
Yes, negotiating tool.
Yeah, and between Google and mobile, and more than half the searches are now done with mobile. I think Google came out with a study recently, said that we check our smartphones 150 times a day.
Yeah.
And something like, I think 73%, what was it? 82% of people consult their phones while they're in a store.
Yep.
So it's changed.
I've been told to do that. I mean, I went to a shop a few years ago, about probably a year or so ago, to buy something. Asked the person's opinion and got told to Google it. And he walked away.
Oh, well, no commission.
I thought, no commission for you, dude. Like, at the end of the day, like, I went into the shop. It's like I got told to Google it. It's like a bizarre.
You would do. That's right. That's right. So what's happened is the consumers have gotten way ahead of us. And if we're not where they are, when they are, with what they want, they're done.
Yep.
You know, bounce out, click, done, finished, never come back.
Short attention span at the end of the day. Like, if they're not seeing what they want, they're gone.
Yeah, and there's more competition than there used to be too, because it's now possible for any company to see what any other company's doing. Like if you go to something like SpyFu, you can look and see which ads they're running, how much they're spending, which ads worked and which ads didn't.
Yep.
I mean, it's all transparent now. You can see which keywords they're being found for, and you can go after them. You can see which ones they've been ignoring and see how many people are searching for them every month. I mean,
it's amazing. Yeah.
Well,
we did a virtual summit about a month ago or so. I interviewed someone that runs a company called Hubstaff, and what they do is they take screenshots. And one of the things that they decided to do from the outset was to show all their financials through a dashboard. So whenever new customers join, refunds, the whole lot's all shown. And one of the reasons why he does it is that he said, well, it's great PR. When he goes to go to a newspaper or whatever, or an online magazine, he says, hey, look, we show all our stats, they get interested. So it makes him stand out. But everything's there. As people, sign up, they get told. So I think, the social proof is like they can find out about you. Is what they find out about you is probably the next subject we'll talk about, which is SEO, I guess, because it's all very well to, be in a situation where you're on the web, but what do they see when they go looking for you, right? So if they see the wrong things.
Yeah, and SEO is so misunderstood. I've learned more about that in the last couple of years, even though I was studying it all the time. It wasn't until I met my partner, who comes at all of this, as I always have, from a revenue perspective.
Yep.
And from, in his case, business management. He was running a company. He was the president of a national company, and really did a lot of pioneering work with the types of products that they offered and that type of thing, very tech oriented. And he keeps looking at all of this from the perspective of the business owner and the revenue and what you're trying to get for the business, which is very different. It's much more strategic. And one of the things we talk about a lot is that there's too much emphasis on tactics. And you mentioned that in your book. And you talked about strategy. In our case, we talk about principles, and how you can't. In fact, one of our principles is that everything has to be optimized for 3 different audiences. You have to meet the customer's expectations, obviously. You have to meet Google's expectations, because if you don't meet Google's expectations, the customers will never find you. And you have to meet your revenue expectations. And you say, well, yes, of course, but that's not how people look at it. They don't realize that that's like the cornerstone. That's it. That's the 3-legged stool that has to be in your mind as you're doing everything you're doing. And if you
there's a lot of focus on, like with SEO guys particularly, it's all about, you're ranked in a number of keywords, you're on page this, you're on page that. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything if people aren't looking for it anyway in the first place.
Yes, there's that problem. And the other problem is identifying or creating your identity for Google. One of the things we do for our clients is we build a identity matrix for Google, so that, I mean, Google's a robot, a very smart robot, but it's still a robot. It's still a dumb robot.
Does some bizarre things sometimes, right?
Yeah. You have to hit it over the head over and over again, with not by stuffing keywords, but basically with concepts. And Google's actually gotten very good at synonyms and understanding concepts. I think they have this word for it, latent inference, or can't remember the term. It's a crazy term, but it basically means that it can deduce things if you're in the subject matter. But you're right about the idea that the data is not enough. You have to actually be able to analyze the data. In fact, we're moving quite a bit in that direction, giving our clients analysis for that type of thing.
Okay. So if someone's going to, like, a lot of people say, look, you invest a lot of money in SEO, you've got to keep going with it, right? So if you start doing some SEO work, is there sort of a point where you can say, look, I've done what I can do and then I can stop? Because obviously once you stop, then you get overwritten, right? So it's a bit of a never-ending story, isn't it?
You know, years ago, I used to be able to say to people, when I was a revenue coach for decades, the first thing I would do is interview customers who had already bought. And the goal was to reverse engineer the successful sale so you could make more sales in quantity. And one of the things that I discovered is that the customer's list was always 100% different than the company's list about what's important to the customer. So they get that wrong. But if they start getting that right, then they would actually succeed. And if they understood what the customer really wanted, and they'd get that data from the interviews, and we'd start redoing everything, they had a pretty good chance. But now, because everybody can see what you're doing, and because Google has such a structure, you know, they have 200 criteria that they're looking at and basing you on. And there's a lot of things people don't understand about SEO. It's not just about structuring your content or writing the content a certain way. It's also about how your pages are structured, who's linking back to you, the directories that you're in. You know, there's about 50 directories that you need to be in order to compete. And Google's looking at all of that and saying, you know,
instantaneously too, like within seconds.
Yeah.
In seconds.
Yeah. And so where should I put them? Number one, what do they do? Which is something that people are very bad at developing, that identity I was talking about. Yeah. And then, so Google says, oh yes, I know they make this and they're good at it, and here, and they're better at that than this, so I'll rank them up here. I mean, I wouldn't envy having Google's job, frankly. You know, trying to make those decisions. But if you give them the right kind of data, they'll do what needs to be done, and it ranks you higher. It's the problem is, getting back to your point, it's so competitive now that you can't just let it sit. There's no more setting and forgetting. Doesn't work. And things change too. Like suddenly everybody will be searching for some new word that you hadn't even thought of, and your competitor figures it out before you do, and suddenly they're getting all that traffic. So you really have to stay on top of it now. You can't market anymore without some kind of dashboard.
So for the sufferers of the pretty shiny syndrome, which is typically what I call the entrepreneurs, or the online entrepreneurs who start one business, start a bit website, and then change their mind, do something else, and they might mix it all up. I would imagine that's going to create havoc in terms of search engines, particularly their name and their identity and all that sort of stuff.
That's true. I agree with you. It's also, though, an age of experimentation. It's so easy now to set up landing pages and test concepts and do AdWords. AdWords is actually really one of our favorite ways of testing concepts. You can be very specific and set a budget and start where your competitors are, understand what's working for them, and stand on their shoulders. You don't have to create it from scratch. And you can test concepts and market ideas very, very quickly. My partner and I have gone through, I don't know how many domain names and concepts. But when they stick, then yes, you do need to work on it, and you can't let it go. You'll just be toast within weeks or months if you don't keep on it.
So back in the heydays when it's almost like I feel like Facebook ads, although they moved on a bit from now, is kind of moved from that whole Google days where you could get like a 10-cent click a scenario and you could get it really cheap. And now it's kind of changed.
There's still some cheap clicks out there for long-term words. There are some cheap clicks, yeah.
And I think it takes a bit of time to work. So is Google AdWords, because one of my clients obviously, have been using Facebook ads because obviously there's a lot more information that you gather than you probably would gather from Google, although Google does collect quite a bit. So if you had someone who was selling, say, a consulting product, where would they go? Should they advertise on Google AdWords? Should they advertise on Facebook ads? What should they do?
Honestly, I shouldn't answer that question because first of all, what type of consulting service?
Yep.
There's
sure an easy one.
Yeah, there's the obvious divisions like B2B versus B2C. Okay, so B2B mostly LinkedIn, surprisingly Twitter, because if somebody actually comes to you from Twitter, they're actually a real person, looking for you.
Good point.
Even though it's, people on B2B just roll their eyes about Twitter.
I find it right. I get quite a bit of traffic off Twitter. Yeah,
well, it depends on what you do with it too. LinkedIn's been very good for B2B people, but I'm generalizing, and you can't generalize.
Yep.
That's one of the things that is just so true anymore. And the reason that I hate personas is because as soon as you start doing that, you're kidding yourself about what could work. And the only way to really find out what works is, one, to interview customers ahead of time so that you understand what's driving them, what their pain points are, like you talk about in your book. And then getting in the ballpark, understanding, basically what they're looking for, and then start testing.
So try both platforms, see what results you get.
You can, and you try them different ways. We actually use all of them for a lot of our clients because they actually need it. Now, and Google also sees, as you also said in your book, that every tweet is a page in their mind. It's a backlink. And if it backlinks to your site, it makes your site look more important. And that's one of the things Google looks at. So you unfortunately have to do it all. I will say that we did research on about 30 different industries, actually more than 30 industries now, and looked at what the leaders were doing. And one of the things we discovered is that, yes, they all had websites, but they put their energy into 6 areas and made sure those were optimized.
Right.
And the areas were customers. In other words, we understand who the customer is and what they want, and we write for them and so on. Search, of course, paid search, conversion. They made sure their conversion was optimized. So if somebody comes in, they actually end up buying, as you again talk about in your book.
Which is a bugbear of mine. the pages they write up a page and there's no conversion, there's no call to action, there's nothing. Just
exactly. You have to keep optimizing each thing. The 5th one was competition, understanding what the competitors are doing, because you can see everything now. And the last one is technology. And when we work with companies, start working with them, one of the first things we work on is technology. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit there, like a site that's truly mobile, not just what do you call responsive, where it just displays, but actually one that consumers will want to work with and click on.
Or runs on Flash. Or runs in Flash.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of things you can do, and you can see that Google has a mobile tester, and they'll actually tell you if your site's really mobile ready, or if it isn't, what you should do about it.
So you really should, to my way of thinking, is most people don't do this. I think they feel uncomfortable. I don't know what it is. But number one, you should Google yourself and to be your own customer and see what you think. And I kind of term it the lizard brain. So basically just pretend to be your own customer, Google something, see how it comes up, and take yourself to the website and then test it on the mobile. And almost everybody tests the mobile second rather than first. But the reality is the traffic's coming on mobile anyway.
More than half now of all the searches are mobile. And it depends.
I saw an interesting ad yesterday actually by a guy that generates a lot of lists. He puts a Facebook ad up to be to ask a question about pricing. So it says is $97, $99 or $100 sell better than which sells better. So you type in the ad the message, The message then comes through Messenger back to you. So basically, you've got to type in, yes, I want that. You get a message from Facebook Messenger to say, here's the link. I'll tell you what it is. He then drives them to YouTube to watch the video. So what he's basically done is use 3 technologies in one run.
That's pretty good.
To think of himself, right? Because he's basically pixeled you on the way through from Facebook. He's managed to actually get you to engage in in Facebook messaging, which means now you can send you more messages. And lastly, he's managed to got his YouTube rankings up, which is going to help Google, right?
Yeah, that's very smart.
And I think that's an interesting thing that people forget to do. Like we ran an Amazon this is something anybody can do. Actually, in America anyway, you can't do it outside of America, but you can do a giveaway of any book you like in Amazon. So you can pick your own book, or you can pick someone else's book. Doesn't matter. And ask the people to do something. So like follow you on Twitter or view a video on YouTube. And so what you can do is mix up the technology. So you can offer a book to your marketplace that might be interested in it, might not necessarily be your book, and actually drive traffic back to do something else. And I think that mixed up technology where you're doing 2, 3 things off one marketing is worth it. It's going to save a lot of money ultimately.
Yeah, and that goes the engagement thing that you were talking about in your book. Very important.
So could they retarget them from YouTube then on a normal Google ad? Because as far as I know, it's been a while since I've looked at Google AdWords, to be honest. If they look a video up on YouTube, are they retargetable through Google Ads that way?
I don't know. It's a good question. I can find out for you.
Yeah, it's interesting to know because I know you could. Like, I don't know whether you looked in the YouTube ads, but YouTube ads is kind of like the old 10-cent click thing. Yeah, it does work for some markets. So some people forget about YouTube altogether when it's the third most search engine, probably. So I think that YouTube's important in the mix as well to mine.
Well, again, we're generalizing. I mean, you really have to understand your customer's buying process. And one of the things that I've been talking about recently is that there is no funnel. That's a figment of our imagination. Like they're captive in our funnel.
No, they're not. They're bouncing out everywhere.
They're just bouncing around. They're like gnats, out in the sunshine. I mean, it's just total attention deficit disorder. So what happens is they do have questions and they're either researching or they're ready to buy or they're comparing. And again, these are things you talked about in your book. And at any given moment, I think Google calls them micro moments. They will come to you with that question or that set of questions. And you really need to be able to answer those questions in a way that satisfies them at that moment.
Yep.
And people
crazy questions.
Yeah, that's true. But you really need to be able to do that. And it could be anywhere. It could be in Twitter, could be Facebook, could be YouTube videos, but you have to understand all those little moments and address your content to those moments.
Which is something I'll sort of move on to is with content, because obviously you talked about the fact that you run the actual SEO, but you also focus on content. And one of the things that I noticed was very smart was a guy that did a YouTube video on how to do things. So he's very smart in what he did. He basically did the video and say how to choose the best audio equipment or the best video camera or whatever, something like that. What it's done is it's exactly what you're saying. It's answering someone's question. So the question is, and I fell for it. So I went looking for the best video camera or something. I forget what I was looking for now. And I saw the video, and of course it looks interesting. And he basically he answered my question. He was presentable. It says, "Hey, get a free thing down the bottom." So then he takes you to the website, and then starts a conversation. But when you think back now, what he realised was that if I'm interested in video or audio or something like that, I'm potentially a customer for him, because I'm, like in my situation was coach, consultant, author. They want to produce products, because ultimately what he does is he sells you how to do products and create your own products online. And why wouldn't you'd be looking for that information if you're going to do it, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it makes sense. And it sort of comes back to the content scenario we'll talk about, is that if you can think out what your customer's journey is going to be like, the answer his question up front, he's going to be happy for that.
Well, that's one of the reasons why you interview your customers, because you find out the things that are in their minds, and we always guess about it, and we're always wrong. We're always wrong. I mean, 100% of the time. And this is after interviewing thousands and thousands of customers. We're always wrong. So, you know, when you interview them and you get to know them as people and you start to think, and I've done this with copywriters all over the world. I've taught them how to interview their customers. And I remember a guy, Rob, I'll never forget, at Dow Jones. And I came into his cubicle after we'd trained people how to interview, and he'd just gotten off the phone with a real customer. It was his first customer interview. And he just was going, oh my God. Oh my God. I said, what's the matter? He said, now I understand. Now I'm writing to a real person. I'm not just writing to some faceless person who has these generic needs, you know, and I'm selling them. I've talked to this guy named John or whatever his name was, and I know who he is now. And his copywriting just went through the roof after that. I mean, he really got good, and all of us can get good or better if we understand who the customer is as a human being. It's very insulting when somebody just sees you as a mark, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's
not pleasant.
No, it's not pretty. On the other end of the fence, when you're sitting on don't put yourself in the customer's shoes is a good old saying, isn't it? And I think, at the end of the day, like when I talk to authors and even clients, I say, imagine your best customer, just the one person that you know, and you'd like 100 of those, and write to them, because at least then you're going to write to someone you know. Like you say, you know, it's probably deeper than that necessarily talking to someone. But if you say, look, pick a customer out of the crowd and say, okay, he's my best customer. If I could have another 100 like him, that'd be great. And write to that person. Focus on that person as being your best customer.
And they're also going to surprise you about marketing. I mean, these are people who are subjected to messages every 20 seconds.
Yep.
One of our writers, our content wizard, we call him, Sean, goes out and just interviews people on the street about their buying habits with the web and so on. And one of the things that he discovered recently is that people actually like getting email from people they already know.
Yep.
And if it has something useful or a deal or something of value to them, they actually don't mind that at all. They actually look forward to it. And yet people are very hesitant to send too many emails.
Yeah.
You can definitely overdo it. And I know you're an aggressive emailer, so I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but it's surprising how people want to get information or what they want from you if you ask them. It changes everything.
At the end of the day, I mean, I saw a good saying the other day. It's probably a bit pessimistic, but it says if you haven't insulted somebody by midday, you're not marketing hard enough.
I don't know if I subscribe to that or not.
Well, I think at the end of the day, if you aren't getting feedback, positive or negative, right? Doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. If you aren't getting feedback, you probably aren't marketing hard enough.
Yeah, that's probably
because people. And so I suppose it's a twist on the fact that you're going to get someone who's going to complain or have a go at you. But the reality is that at least he's noticed, right? At least he's noticed your marketing. At least it means you're doing something.
Yeah.
If you're getting no feedback, you're not doing any marketing. Your marketing is either not working or you're not doing any.
Yeah.
One of the two. But I think it's kind of interesting. So I mean, I know one guy that emails every day. I don't know whether I could come up with that amount of content, but he emails every day, and apparently in the industry, in the online industry anyway, they say if you don't email your customer at least once a week in that industry, in the online side of it, then they'll forget about you, and that's it. You'll have to get back to where you were. As
long as you're giving them something of some value, that's true.
Yeah. And I mean, just emailing junk won't get very far.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think thinking that thing. So with your content side of the business, what's your kind of, give me some secrets of what you do in terms of content design? Because obviously one of the things is that a lot of people, they want to do content and they start off doing content maybe, but then they just stop. And I think part of the problem is they try to do too much content.
Yeah.
Right? They overwhelm themselves with too much work. So I'm always a believer that you should cut back your content and do good quality content and do less of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good, I mean, you're right. And it goes back to something you were saying earlier about being consistent and not letting the ball drop. You have to keep hammering at it. It takes time to build up an identity with Google. You're competing with thousands of other people trying for those same keywords and so on. There's a couple of things that we do that really helps. One of them is, again, I talk about that identity that we build for the client. So we really have a solid basis for setting up their. It's not a brand. I don't even think about brands anymore, because actually brands don't matter much to customers anymore.
No.
These days
particularly the younger generation who just buy the cheapest thing they can get, you know, like
not the cheapest thing. They tend to go after the company that gave them the best information. And it goes back to your book again, you know, helping them make a right buying decision. So one of the things we do is we look at obviously what the client's trying to accomplish, and obviously what people are searching for. So we write articles about that. But we also look at the things, and that's all from the company's perspective and Google's perspective.
Yep.
So that kind of covers revenue and Google. And the third one being the customer. We look at the things that they share. And a good tool for that is BuzzSumo, BuzzSumo.
Yeah.
Very good at testing, seeing what people share, what ideas. You can see the articles in your industry that have gotten a lot of press. And you don't imitate it. You don't write the same article, but you can see the topic that has caught people's attention. And
bizarrely, sometimes you wonder why, but
yeah, depending. But then you can write articles that are in the same vein, and it helps you get, you know, you're just again, the most amazing thing is, yes, the customers have a supercomputer in their hands, but honestly, with the amount of data that's out there now, with tools like Google Analytics, Google Trends, the Google AdWords tools, SpyFu, Moz, Alexa, BuzzSumo, there's just so much data. And if you use it properly and you understand what you're looking at, which is the second problem, and we're basically trying to solve that these days, then you can make good decisions about what to do next.
Makes sense. So tell me a little bit about your book, because
show
the book to our audio listeners.
We're on video now. So Roadmap to Revenue, how to sell the way your customers want to buy.
Yeah.
I wrote this book after interviewing thousands of customers and realizing that that companies were just marketing in the dark. They just were throwing spaghetti on the wall, and it's very, very expensive to do that.
Yeah. It sticks.
The
money sticks; it doesn't come back. Right?
That's right. So what I've done in the book is there's two main things you get out of this book. One is that whole idea of thinking like a buyer instead of a seller, because the minute we become a seller, we start thinking like sellers instead of buyers. The other is how to interview your customers. So I devote a whole chapter to that. Very specific instructions. Here's how you get them on the phone, why you interview them on the phone, not in person, why you don't do surveys, and the questions you ask and all that. And then the last parts of the book are about the different types of buying processes.
Right.
And you map them out. So there's for light scrutiny products and services, medium scrutiny products and services, heavy and intense scrutiny products and services. And I really do say, here are the types of questions they ask. Here who else is involved. Here's how you answer those questions. So you get a lot closer to their buying process using the book. That's why I called it a roadmap.
Right. Makes sense. So, I mean, I think, how many people do you know when you consult them that ever interviewed their customers as a matter of interest?
Very few. And honestly, but a lot of the clients that come to us have read my book.
Right.
They are,
they come to you because they don't want to do it themselves, right?
Yeah. Well, they're converted when they've read the book. They're just like, oh, we have to do this, and some of them have because of it. Yeah.
So I think it's time well spent. Ring up and talk to your customers, particularly if you're talking to the customers on a day-to-day basis. You've probably got a pretty good idea because they're telling you. But at the end of the day, if you aren't.
No. Even then, you still have to interview them, because what you're looking for is information about their buying process. And one thing I need to say is, when you're selling to them, they won't tell you what they're really thinking.
No, not at the sales page. They'll tell you later, but they won't tell you then. Because they're fearful you might try and get a better price out of them. You know?
Well, actually, the reason they tell you more is because now they're vested in your success. They bought something from you, they want you to succeed. So
don't go broke and not do the warranty, right?
So
okay, makes sense. So at which stage, like, should they do that interview process? Should it be fairly soon after they buy, or is it something like should it be part of the system they use on a day-to-day basis, or you just do this a one-off thing and then maybe do it again in a year's time? Or
even as much as markets change now, if you do it once a quarter or once every 6 months and interview 5 to 7 people of any given type, you're going to get the data that you need. And you'll find by the 5th to 7th call, believe it or not, they all start saying the same thing, even though they've never talked to each other. And you'll end up with a what I call the positioning statement, which is they're real good at this, but they're not so good at that. That's your actual brand. Branding is marketing. That's the promise you make, but your brand is the promise that you're keeping. And all of your customers will use the same words to describe it, believe it or not. And it's always a strength, weakness. They're good at this, but they're not so good at that.
And I think the best thing that you can get is if customer repeats back to you the marketing message you're putting into the marketplace, which I've had a couple do that to me.
Well, you're like,
I know you've figured it out, because they say, I think I know what you do. And they go, this and that. You go, you're spot on. You actually read stuff, right? And you don't get a lot of it, but sometimes you think, okay, they've read your stuff, so at least you know that your messaging is getting there. I think the message what you're sending is important.
Yep.
Makes sense. So thanks very much for your time. We're going on for ages probably talking about stuff like this. But how do people get in touch with you? What's the can they get some more information about any of this? Do you have any free information they can get, or where would you take your initial?
Obviously, they come to the website. Cloudpotential.com is our site. We also have a radio show called The Digital Revolution Show, and that's a site by itself, and that's where I blog, actually. digitalrevolutionshow.com. My email is Kristin@cloudpotential.com, so they can call me there or email me. That's the best thing. And then, of course, the book is available on Amazon.
Great. All right. So we'll put all those links up on the underneath the podcast, so people don't have to remember all that. But it's also handy to have it, so it reminds me to type in. So really appreciate your time, and maybe we'll talk again too. Maybe when the things change again in another year's time, we'll talk again.
That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You've just been listening to another great Evolvepreneur podcast interview. We hope you enjoyed it. Please visit evolvepreneur.biz today to find out more about our online community and how you can take part.